And good morning, it's time for another vlog, and this month I thought I'd look at the New Zealand reading mini challenge kindly provided by Marie of Just Add Books that I took part in last month. So I hadn't read a lot of New Zealand literature. Kia ora everyone. um, and I thought, give it a go, see how we go, and I managed to have a pretty good month. Read quite a few books, and I thought I'd run down, or actually have a countdown of the best books from the New Zealand Reading Mini Challenge. So coming in at number 6, high-tech props, is Janet Frame, Faces in the Water. Now, a lot of people think, wow, number 6 in a list of 6 for Janet Frame, that's pretty poor. Janet Frame is very famous, probably, apart from Catherine Mansfield, probably New Zealand's most famous writer. It's not really my style of writing. It's very flowery, and I'm not averse to flowery language, but I think that there are a lot of people who will love Janet Frame, and I like her, but I don't love her. Now this one was basically autobiographical. It was about her time in mental institutions, her near brush with a lobotomy. She just avoided having part of her brain removed, which shows there's a very fine line between genius and madness. So be careful, of you out there. At the beginning, it actually says this is a fiction. This is not based on. None of the characters are based on real life, and yeah, that's rubbish, in my opinion. Because if you look at any, her Wikipedia page, I'm sure if you read her autobiography, her biography, you'd see similarities. It's a very interesting insight into the world, of the mentally disabled, what goes on behind the walls, the things that we don't like to not think about, and it's genuinely shocking at times. The language is very inventive. As I said, it didn't really go anywhere though for me, and I know that's not the point, but yeah, so that's why for me this is number 6 of the 6, but I think a lot of other people would enjoy this a lot more. I'd like to try some other Janet Frame books, because I know a lot of people have been saying, yes, she's wonderful, but this one wasn't for me. Alright, moving on. Number 5 is Witi Ihimara, I think that's the correct pronunciation, and The Rope of Man. And this is actually 2 novels joined together. His first novel, Tangi, and a sequel written 32 years later called The Return. And this is about a Maori, it's Tama Mahana, or Tom in the second book, and how he deals with the death of his father. The first book is actually in 2 strands. The one is his trip back from Wellington to his hometown, and the other is going back to Wellington, but they're actually done in alternating chapters. It's a very interesting book, a fascinating portrayal of Maori culture and growing up as a Maori in a country at that time split between 2 different cultures, the Pākehā, the white settlers, and the Maori. I loved it. I read this. This was the second Maori book in a row that I read, and I was like, wow, I might be just reading Maori books for the rest of the month. I think Tangi was brilliant. The Return was good, the second half, but I felt there were a couple of issues I had with it. I think one was that it was a bit too super Kiwi. Everything, it was kind of saying, yeah, New Zealand's great, and New Zealanders are great, and we're wonderful, and I think it was a bit too much at times. And also the way that Tom developed into this super successful person, it was a little bit, yeah, I don't know, a little bit unbelievable. But what was very good about The Return was the way that it took some of the gaps, things that we didn't know about in Tangi, and actually filled in those gaps in a very believable way. And he actually said in his introduction that he'd always planned to write a sequel, and reading it, I could believe it. It wasn't just made up. Afterwards, I think he'd actually planned this from the start. So Yep, it was good, and I'd definitely like to read something else. But yeah, only number 5. Number 4. Number 4 is Mr. Pip by Lloyd Jones. This was a great book. Really enjoyed this. Not too long either. This is a story of Ireland, Bougainville. Sorry, terrible pronunciation. There was a civil war, and the local white workers at the mine all disappeared, the teachers, leaving just the locals, and one white man who gets press ganged into teaching local kids. And he's not a teacher, so he didn't really know what to do. And the plan he came up with was to read them Great Expectations. It sounds a bit strange, but this book is all about getting away out of our daily existence, how a book can fascinate us and open doors to new worlds. It's told through the eyes of a young girl, through the voice of a young girl. She narrates it, and it was just, and of course she identifies with Pip. All the kids identify with Pip. All the kids, fall under the spell of Dickens' prose and the characters, but she more than most. And yeah, I've seen a lot of, adaptations, shall we charitably say, of classic novels using other people's characters, Pride and Prejudice and zombies and things like that. And I hate that. I really do. I'm not going to read any of that stuff. I just hate the idea. This is how I think you can use classic literature. This idea of a book within a book, and I just really like the way that Lloyd Jones developed this idea of Dickens, and the way that fiction can become real life. There's also another plot where Mr. Pip becomes a real person, which causes a lot of problems. This probably would have been higher on my list, but I felt that in a few places it was a little bit slow. There were a couple of times where I was, okay, let's get on, and also because I read some better books. That's just the way it is sometimes. I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to stop there. I'm going to leave the top 3 for another day. Bet you can't wait. See ya.